Elemental is the new Pixar film just released. I was not able to see it on its opening weekend because The Flash also came out that week, but I was able to check it out this past weekend on its second week, and now I'm going to give a review on it. Now, we've seen all different kinds of worlds through the eyes of Pixar. Worlds of toys, monsters, cars, emotions, even souls, to name a few. The initial hook of Elemental fits right into those categories. In a world composed of walking, talking elements, fire, water, clouds, and earth, two elements, a young fire lady named Ember and a young water man named Wade, form an unlikely bond unlike anything other elements in that world has seen. Now, not every new world Pixar has created has been all that interesting or worthwhile. Certainly, a whole world of magical creatures wasn't anything that exciting and onward, and certainly a whole world of farming dinosaurs was boring as shit in The Good Dinosaur. And speaking of The Good Dinosaur, this film is directed by the same director of that film. However, the showcase of this world and the overall concept were much more exciting this time around. While the whole origins of this elemental city are admittedly a little flimsy, the actual execution of seeing this world and society operate is pretty fun and interesting, and the visuals are fantastic. The movie that this is actually the most similar to isn't a Pixar film, although you might mistake it for one, is Zootopia, which came from regular non-Pixar Disney animation. Like Zootopia, Elemental utilizes the differences in its society of characters to create a story that mirrors our world's all but two real issues of race and stereotypes. Now, overall, I do believe that Zootopia was a bit more, or definitely more, on the nose when it came to this kind of messaging. Whether or not you consider that a good or bad thing is up to you, but there are moments where Elemental really plays into those kind of stories. In this world, the fire people, no, not those fire people, are looked at with a raised eyebrow because their element, fire, is the most destructive, whether intentionally or often unintentionally, due to the natural havoc and chaos that fire can create. We even hear this in the movie. Elemental City was not built with fire in mind, so those people, or elements, have to live on another side of town. This helps set up the natural conflict that would occur between the fire people and the water people. No, not those water people, or water elements, I guess. Naturally, these are two elements who it's in their best interest not to be together. Too much heat or fire would cause the water elementals to evaporate or die, and too much of a flood of water would put out/kill any fire element. And that's where our main story kicks in. Through a misunderstanding, Ember, Miss Fire, is determined to get Wade, Mr. Water, to help fix an issue that's threatening her dad's diner cafe shop. Initially, it seemed like this movie was going in the direction of being a mystery-type adventure like, again, Zootopia was. But where it begins to deviate is that this movie is much more focused on the relationship that develops between Ember and Wade, rather than any kind of mystery element and even the more on-the-nose racial exploration that Zootopia did. Now, Ember was such a cool character from the moment we see her. Her design is amazing, but the character has a great fiery personality, pun intended, and the kind of attitude early on that we see, and her voice acting was just terrific. I couldn't say the same thing from Wade when we first see him. Initially, when we see the character, he's in sort of an overly sad state, and he was just really fucking annoying, to where I was like, oh my goodness, I'm not going to be able to take much more of this character. But it wasn't until later on when we see more of the sort of water elementals that this element of his sadness began to make sense. Whereas the fire elementals have a naturally more aggressive disposition and are prone to sort of outbursts of anger, see Hades from Hercules or anger from Inside Out, water is the opposite. Water is the visual representation of tears, meaning sadness. So it ended up making sense why Wade and all the other water elementals had these moments. And this gimmick actually became funnier and funnier as the movie went along and had some great payoffs in certain spots. Now, the combination of physical and personality differences certainly sets the stage for why it was so unlikely why a bond would form between these two. But that's the start of any good romance, I guess, is the differences between our two characters. It was certainly easier to see why Wade begins to fall for Ember rather than the other way around. But that's how it more or less starts. We see the initial hesitation, but through some time spent together, we get to see how things develop between the two. I find the movie's development in this case to work surprisingly well, as we see their bond in various stages, whether it's the awkward first date, the inevitable dating montage, and the meet the parents stage on both sides, which are some of the best scenes in the whole movie. Now, unfortunately, the movie can't help but fall into the inevitabilities that stories like this begin to experience. There's that breakout period between the two, the major showcase of apprehension from a parent. Some of these things are just inevitable and natural for stories like this, but the movie does have those moments where it's kind of like, yeah, been there, done that for stories such as this. But what the movie does have is moments of working on a pure romance level, and that's definitely what it was going for. I bought into the character development on the parts of Ember and Wade through some genuine moments that the movie earned, whether it was a visual showcase or really sort of seeing or feeling that bonding and connection between the two. Didn't really feel much for the other characters in this film because there really wasn't much to be said for them. You know, Ember's parents are the ones that we see the most of. But their story, whether it's looking through the two's romance or seeing the story involving Ember taking over for her dad's shop, you know, that kind of stuff kind of sort of writes itself. But regardless, I do believe this movie worked pretty well in what it was going for, and I did quite enjoy it. So 8.5 out of 10 flames for Elemental.
See? He likes it!
I even got a poster that came with a ticket I paid for my regular screening of the film. And speaking of my viewing experience, I saw this film at a 1:30 p.m. showing this past Saturday. And there actually was a decent-sized crowd in my auditorium, which was pretty surprising given the movie's sort of low opening weekend box office. Well, it turns out this movie only did have a drop of 37%, albeit from its low opening weekend. So that's 29 million opening weekend to 18 million second weekend. Like I said, it's a good hold, but the movie had a low opening to start with. But it does show that the movie actually is holding well and is getting some good word of mouth amongst the audience. But Disney animation, whether it's through regular Disney animation or in this case Pixar, has just been in a terrible state when it comes to making money. You know, in a post-pandemic world, a lot of their movies have either gone just to straight Disney Plus or they've just been outright flops. I mean, last year they had the disastrous 1-2 punch of Lightyear and Strange World, a couple of awful movies that rightfully bombed. Even Encanto, which is right now probably the most popular Disney animated film since Frozen, did not tear it up at the box office and only became the hit that it did because of Disney Plus and how everyone discovered it there. I hope Elemental can keep chugging along and make, you know, some decent money at the box office. It's doing all right in terms of worldwide gross. Because there was a fair amount about the movie that I liked, and like I said, did really enjoy it overall. So that'll do it for this review of Elemental. If you made it to the end of this video, thank you for watching.